Last time, on TPOT Rewritten. As the first episode of the TPOT Rewritten series, we first took a look at some of the problems that the Power of 2 currently has, going over the change of writers from episode 2 and onwards, the identity crisis of what TPOT wants to be, and then showing that the current TPOT is more and more becoming a better version of the post-split instead of being a much more character-driven season. We will now take a look at the debut of TPOT to see who will join the other 40 characters in the Power of 2, and after that we will take a look at what storylines the first bundle of characters could possibly have. And that's what you missed on TPOT Rewritten. The debut of TPOT consisted of 2 people joining, those 2 being Winner and Price Tag. Now, since we actually know the personalities of Winner and Price Tag, I think I'm going to stick with these 2 as the debutters of the first episode. However, the debut section isn't over yet. As you can recall in the episode, Non-Existy did get more votes than Price Tag, which was pretty unfair for all those voters that voted for Non-Existy. So, to make things more interesting, I thought it would be a good idea for Fanny to complain to 2 about this thing. We've seen Fanny earlier in the episode, and even all the way back to BFDIA, that Fanny is someone who wants things to be fair as possible. So I would suggest a scene where Fanny would want to make Non-Existy join instead of Price Tag, though with no success.
There can't be a prime number of you, because that means the teams won't have equal amounts of people.
Well, the nearest composite numbers are 40 and 42. None of us want to quit, so we'll have to add somebody. Why not go with the second most voted person from the pool of joiners?
That's a great idea! Thanks, Golf Ball! Okay, so the 42nd person should be Non-Existy. Let's see. 41 plus 0 equals 41. Well, that wouldn't work, so we can't do that.
Now just hold on a second too. I've joined TPOT solely because of the fact that BFB became unfair after the original prize was removed, only to then have it be brought back once we all left to join this show. So I'm not gonna let something like this slide.
What do you mean, Fanny?
Why are you not making Non-Existy the second person to join TPOT, when he clearly got second in the debut?
Well, I already said that he doesn't really count as one, so that wouldn't really work.
If that was the case all this time, then why did you even let him be one of the characters that could be voted to join the show?
That's a good point. That was a bad move on my behalf, but I doubt Non-Existy would be able to compete, so we'll just have to go with the third placer instead. Taggy, welcome to the Power of 2.
Oh yeah, I take back all the things I said about Winner while I was down there.
Just to be sure, you do equal 1, right?
I can if you want me to.
Great! Then that means we have 42 contestants now!
You're not gonna get away that easily with this. I'll make sure those 5,697 voters are made justice.
Right? Well, in any case,
Let's head downstairs for team picking!
So that's the debutter segment. Winner and Price Tag end up joining TPOT like in the original. Now it's the time for the other 40 characters. So with the initial idea that TPOT is supposed to be this well-written season, I decided that I could go and give every single character a unique storyline. Sure, some characters are going to be eliminated first than others, but nonetheless I've tried my hardest to give every single character an arc or a storyline, so let's go trough all of these characters, to see what I came up with. Starting off, we have Balloony. Huh? What's that you say? He's not in TPOT? Well, he doesn't really fit post-split at all, especially considering that post-split is filled with BFDI characters and just a couple of newbies, so the better choice was to get him on TPOT. He would join the S, alongside Cloudy, because yeah, Cloudy definitely needs Balloony to be able to function and have actual fans. In here, what would his storyline be? Well, I pretty much would have him work as the team leader of this team. Sure, Winner is also able to be a good team leader, but I feel like Balloony would be the one to actually make this team work a lot better. And besides that, he would also share a lot of moments with the other 2 remaining Beep members, those being Cloudy and Rocky. As much as I don't like Rocky, I can at least say that Balloony was able to use him sometimes, therefore not making him a completely boring character. Instead he can work as an item for the team to use for the challenges. And besides, Balloony does like Rocky enough. Same applies with Cloudy. I would have Balloony talk a lot with Cloudy, considering that they've pretty much became best friends during the time of BFB. And lastly, I do think Balloony is a pretty rational guy, so I would also have him talk with either Winner or Cloudy about the whole situation between the 2 of them. Who knows, maybe he could get the 2 of them to set their differences aside and actually fixing this friendship. So yeah, this is the overall idea for Balloony and TPOT. And if you were wondering who Balloony is gonna replace, well, He replaces Ice Cube. Now I know what some people would say, but I honestly think that Ice Cube fits a lot more in the post-split, rather than Teapot. I mean, post-split has characters that Ice Cube has known for a long time in the past, such as Leafy, Bubble, Ruby. And plus, this could work as part of her storyline of distancing herself from Book because of her toxic behavior. She would probably want to be as far as possible to Book, so she thought that joining post-split with Leafy would be a much better idea than to stay on Teapot. So yeah, no Ice Cube in this rewritten. Sorry Ice Cube fans, but I just see her more as a post-split character than a Teapot character. Barf Bag is next. Now, this was actually quite hard to figure out. I mean, the things that she had going were Lollipop, with the whole Barf Molecules storyline, and Spongy, with the whole friendship these two had, and both of those characters are gone, so Barf Bag is pretty much left with nothing. So the idea I had with her isn't an amazing one. But I think it's creative enough for the time she'll be in the season, and that idea is water. You remember how Barf Bag felt a lot different after she was filled with warm water in BFB 14?
Huh? Where am I?
Oh, my bakery! You're back, Barf Bag!
Yep, thanks for caring for me. I feel great now.
That's awesome!
I feel really great.
Yup, I bet you do!
No, you don't understand. I feel amazing.
Okay, that's enough.
I feel so super fantastic.
We've already heard that before, Barfy.
Wait, hold on. I feel good because the water inside me is warm.
Oh?
Yep, this water is warm. Like, really warm.
Well, why not expand on that idea? She said that she feels more energetic because the water inside her was warm, so what if that water was cold? Would she become grumpy and rude? What about other types of liquids? Maybe soda can make her feel adventurous and brave, or orange juice could make her act more rational and calm. And the person that would want to test more of this thing with Barf Bag would be Donut, because he's basically the closest friend that Barf Bag has left, so Donut would be the one to want and try this liquid theory out to Barf Bag. While this might feels like a stretch, I can't really think of anything else for Barf Bag, since all pre-existing storylines with her are pretty much gone. Next is basketball. Now she's already quite a great character in the actual season, so I don't really have to do much change with her. I would basically have her go try the same team making process, have the rivalry she currently has with golf ball, while also working as the team leader of the strongest team on earth, with also having some beef and fights with Eggy, as both do usually tend to bicker a lot with each other. So yeah, nothing really that different from the actual season. Next on the list is Belle. Now some people would want Belle to just remain as the comic relief of her team, but I do have a really good idea for her character. So you know how Belle and Foldy sometimes had some moments together in BFB? Well, since in the first Teapot episode, Belle asks Foldy to stick together, why not expand on this friendship of her and Foldy?
Hey, Foldy, wanna make a team together?
Oh, of course.
They would decide to form a team together because they bonded quite a lot during the events of BFB, so much so that they would like to be on the same team again, quite possibly becoming pretty close friends. Not only would this help with Belle's character, since she never had anyone in particular to talk with before, but this also works perfectly for Foldy, since she definitely would feel a lot more alone, now that Stapy is no longer on the show. So yeah, a really cool friendship between Foldy and Belle, to make them more noticeable in their team. Black Hole is the next character, and overall I would keep him the same, with maybe having him not screw up as much as he does, since he looked a lot more like the straight man of Death Pact in BFB, rather than a nuisance. I would also make him bond specifically with Dree, as these two characters definitely have a lot in common, both in personality and ideals, so they would both act as the leaders of this team. So yeah, overall, Black Hole remains the same, with just a few changes here and there. The next one is a really big change, so we now have Bomby. Bomby has always been a pretty irrelevant character in the series, which really sucks considering the fact that he's the first ever recommended character in the series. So to do him some justice, I'm going to give him a really compelling story arc. So, during BFB, it's been shown that Bomby is really good friends with Nelly, some examples being BFB 1 and BFB 10. So I would go and explore this friendship a lot more in Teapot, but that's not all. I would then have this friendship be challenged, as Price Tag would join just not. And yes, I'm keeping Price Tag with Nelly, but this is for a great reason. Instead of putting Nelly and Price Tag apart, why don't we instead explore more of this idea? Nelly would spend a lot more time with Price Tag, to the point where Bomby would feel like he's no longer Nelly's best friend. Because of this, Bomby would start to act a lot more nervous and stressed, because he would fear that he would eventually lose Nelly as her best friend.
Oops. Sorry about... I'm stuck in!
I know what I'm doing!
Okay.
He would hate Price Tag with a burning passion, to the point where he would try to make Price Tag look bad in front of Nelly, and do other things like that. So that's the idea for Bomby for this rewritten. That's how you do justice to the first ever recommended character. Next is Book, and I do have a little idea for her. So in this rewritten, Book isn't on just not. I feel like she doesn't really have a purpose in that team. So she would instead be on Are You Okay? She would remember most of the characters in this team, as they were almost all part of Team No Name from BFDIA. She would remember how bossy Golf Ball was like, which would then translate into Book's bossy attitude in BFB. So, despite being in a team full of people she was once enemies with, she would now have to work with them to make sure they wouldn't be put up for elimination. She would have some beef with characters like Golf Ball, and especially Fries. And alongside that, Pillow would still be with Book, meaning Pillow is also on Are You Okay? You could also explore more of the friendship Book and Pillow first had in Teapot 1. Maybe Book would want to try to understand Pillow more, only to be left with even more questions about her entire character.
Pillow? Where are you going?
I don't usually know.
What does that mean? Pillow?
An interesting duo for sure. Bottle is the next character down the list, and she surely is an interesting case. At first, it seemed like Teapot was not gonna do anything with her, but then in Teapot 3, she begins to be somewhat involved in the storyline with Clock and Winner, trying to make Clock understand that he's being too obsessive over Winner. And then there's this very specific scene.
Yellowface has got this, Clock, all under control. Clock?
Yeah, the performance is gonna be great.
Don't push anyone, Clock.
Oops. Sorry, what?
I've never seen Bottle act on a serious note before. Bottle's always been the type of character to act silly and goofy because, well, she's that type of character. But then she very calmly tells Clock to not push anyone. That's such an interesting side of Bottle that we've never seen, and in this rewritten you bet I will explore this idea much more. The idea is that Bottle would be the first one to try and settle the situation between Winner and Clock, mostly trying to talk to Clock about how his behavior is not a really healthy one. There's definitely a lot of things that can be done with her, but for now her main thing will be to talk more with Clock about this problem of his. Cake is next, and he's an interesting case. Despite in the past not really liking Cake, I've recently come to like him more, and I think I have a couple of ideas for him in this rewritten. For starters, remember in Teapot 1, where Cake would lose Eggy and Clock, thinking that they are as friends, despite never actually talking together.
You're not seriously passing up this opportunity, right? Well, suit yourself, but I'm not gonna miss out.
Wait! You two are my friends! You can't split up!
Cake, we never even do things together. It's okay.
In this scene we can see that Eggy realized that being on the same team as Cake didn't really translate into becoming friends, so it's clear that Cake just assumed that because they were all on the same team, they were all friends with each other, and when Eggy told him this, it would affect Cake a lot harder here. So, to avoid having Cake do the same mistake, Cake would try a lot more to actually befriend the people in his team, so that he can have actual friends this time around. So that's Cake's main plot in this rewritten, but that's not all. Since Cake would still remain on Just Not, I would have Cake be particular friends with Nickel, but what would I do with Nickel and Cake? Well, one thing that Trials made me notice is this clip right here.
How about a pile of stuff? I love it, Cake!
What does that mean?
Oh, I think I follow. It's always fun to pick up some silly prizes and things at an amusement park.
Thank you. I struggled to put it into words.
We can see that Cake does struggle sometimes with wording things, so I would have Nickel act more as Cake's quote-unquote translator. He would explain what Cake usually means when he's struggling to word things out, so that's a pretty wholesome friendship between the two of them that would be quite nice to see. Next up is Clock, and this is kind of an obvious thing, but I would mostly continue the Winner and Clock storyline. Not much to add, since this is the main thing with Clock and Teapot. Cloudy's the next character, and I would mostly have him act as Balloony's buddy, but I would also have him interact more with Rocky, as Rocky and Balloony are all ex-Beep members, so they would definitely like to stick together as a trio. And as another thing, it would be interesting to see Cloudy to be one of the first people to actually make Clock notice his behavior.
Hey guys, I found Rocky while I was recovering Icy,
Winner! Pottle is dead! You gotta recover Pottle!
Oh. Guess I'm doing that then.
Hey, you could have let them stay a little longer.
And finally, I will have him use more his collection for some kind of advantage in the challenges, but not too much to the point this would be the only Cloudy trait, just enough so that people remember that Cloudy does indeed have a collection. Coiny is up next, and he will have two main things in the season. First of all, he's gonna act as the true team leader of his team. I've always thought of Coiny as a pretty good leader, especially during his time in BFDIA, and since Pin would somewhat remain with the same cheating storyline, Coiny would have to step up and act as the new team leader for teammates. And after the team leader idea, there's also the whole situation with Pin. Now I definitely see why people would want me to completely remove the cheating arc, but the problem with this storyline isn't the idea itself, but it's rather the execution. As many people have pointed out, Pin never acted mean or yelled to her teammates, so to see her do that and overall act much more entitled was not good to see. So to fix this situation with Coiny and Pin, I would mostly have Coiny still use more questionable methods to win challenges, just like in episode 2 and 3. And then when Pin would see this, she definitely would feel a lot more conflicted about this. Because of this would eventually lead to a conclusion where Coiny would try to understand Pin's point of view, and have a great wholesome scene between the two characters, just like in BFB6.
Just look at you and me. We've got a whole BFDIA's worth of experience under our collective belt, and even when it comes time, we won't hesitate to let it show. There's nothing to be afraid of, Pin. I promise.
That really means a lot.
It's nothing. Now, wanna go gush about our favorite cube with the rest of us losers?
You bet.
Donut is the next character on the list, and in this timeline, he isn't in Teammates. This time, he's in Just Not. It turns out that Naily would actually accept Donut's offer to stick together, therefore having Donut and Barf Bag in Just Not.
Well, I know I'm sticking with Barf Bag.
And I know I'm sticking with Bomby.
Cool, so you want to stay on the same team?
Yeah.
So, what would Donut do in this team? I would mostly have him act as the straight man of the team, since Just Not never feels like there's someone who leads the team, and it's rather a more confusing group of people. So Donut would easily take the leader role of this team, and like we mentioned before, he would be interested in finding out more about what Barf Bag's liquids inside her can make her act like. So he would sometimes take her in some places to test more of this theory of his. In addition to this, Donut would be the one to try and dissolve the whole situation between Bomby, Naily and Eggy, even if this wouldn't work at first. Also, remember what Donut's diary said about Bomby? Well, now that Donut's on the same team as Bomby, maybe that can actually be expanded upon in some way. I still don't know how, but I'll see what I can do about that. Right after Donut, we have Eggy. Now you may know that I am a huge fan of Eggy, so much so that I've made an over-hour-long character analysis video. So with that in mind, I do have a lot of things that could be done with the character in this rewritten. First of all, I would have Eggy act as Basketball's frenemy, as in she would be friends with Basketball. But they would also have very different ideas on how to win challenges in each episode, so these two would always have this friendly rivalry, to see who would have a better idea to win this challenge or that challenge. Another thing related to Eggy would be Winner's interest in her. As we see in TPOT 2, Winner gets interested in Eggy, and so they would want to maybe learn more about them in some way, which not only would help to make Eggy more relevant, but it would also work with Clock and Winner's storyline, since Clock would probably get really jealous that Winner would want to be interested in Eggy out of all people. So yeah, rest assured that Eggy will have lots of things for this rewritten, don't you worry. Up next is Eraser, and he will work quite differently in this rewritten, as he's not in Are You OK? You see, in this timeline, instead of Pen going to Eraser, it would be Eraser to join Pen's team, which would be Death Pact again. Now, I've seen lots of people complain that Death Pact again is just a bunch of idiots, who are perfectly fine with losing challenges so that they can prevent death. So to not have everyone think like that, I would have Eraser be on this team, and considering that Eraser has no problem killing people, and he definitely would not listen to the team's rules, he would continue to go and kill people during challenges, which would make the rest of the team pretty suspicious of his behavior. This would push Pen to try and cover up Eraser's killing accidents, which would create more tension within the team for sure.